Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Chris here from Big Sports News, X Rotation, however the flip you know me in these interwebs. And today I'm going to bring you guys a quick player tier list, which is what I wanted to do last week. But as you guys can recall, some people, Cloud9 New York, wanted to foil my plans, but foiled no more they are. We finally have the Cloud9 New York roster that has been announced. So we have Okies, Encourage, Hyde, and Nezra. So all four of these guys are Challengers players who have been picked up. Most of them came from Stallions. So yeah, Okies came from Fortnite, I believe, but most of these guys came from Stallions. So yeah, so the Zuma pipeline continues. So I didn't actually put their player pictures in because I don't think they had player pictures when I looked. So we're just going to keep the Cloud9 boys to stand in place and represent them for now. So we're just going to go with each player in order. So 04, we'll put him in the solid tier. I feel like 04, he was in kind of like that elite tier. He was cementing himself as an elite tier player. But honestly, after his Major 1 performance, I think in my mind and in the mind of probably everyone else, he's taken a bit of a step back. So, yeah. Looking at the next player, we have Abe. I would say he's fighting for a spot right now. This Vancouver Surge team, if anyone's on the chopping block from that team, it would definitely be him. So, just based on current performance and what we've seen of all the players that we've seen in the league thus far, I'm going to put Abe in fighting for his spot at the moment, just because he's had some good moments, but honestly, he's not been the best. Speaking of people who have had some good moments, Abizi has moved into the Godlike category for me recently. I feel like he's been playing the best COD that we've seen from him this year, and he honestly has looked to be the best player on Thieves. At least he was throughout most of Major 1, watching their matches for me. So, speaking of someone where I'm not really as sure to place them, we have Abuza. Honestly, where do we put Abuza? I mean, Abuza's been pretty godlike online, but on LAN he was so we'll put him in solid. And then we'll put Afro in the fighting for his spot category because he's representative of all the C9 guys who we know they are currently fighting for their spots just because that's the place they've been placed, right? Speaking of someone who I think is honestly fighting for his spot, we have Cammy. He's had some encouraging moments where he's looked pretty good, but he has not looked like Cold War Cammy or anything like the type of player that we expect to really justify their place on a CDL spot. On a CDL roster, excuse me. Speaking of people who justify their spot on a CDL roster, we have the highest paid player in the league, Celium. We're automatically going to put him in Godlike. Cell has looked like Cell. I mean, he's lived up to all the expectations. It's just a matter of getting that consistent support from his supporting cast members, Exit, Pred, and of course, Kismet. So, speaking of people who have looked great, despite what they've gotten from their supporting cast members, we're going to put CleanX in solid. He's been having a great year. For his personal standards, his team has not really been the best, but in terms of contributing to his team, he's been a solid contributor overall, and I would have to put him in the solid category because he really hasn't taken any considerable steps back where you're looking at him like, hey, you gotta step it up. I mean, he's been great. I feel like he definitely can hit another level for his own personal standards in terms of overall impact and consistency overall, but that's just a matter of time, and maybe in Stage 2 he'll be coming a little bit diffy with that role change. So I think he's been a solid contributor. I feel like he'll probably move up into Godlike based on how the season goes. I feel like with that role change he'll probably be a little bit more comfortable. Speaking of someone who has been in different varying levels of comfort, I'm going to put Craze in solid for now, just because he was obviously emerging into the elite category of SMGs, but he kind of took a step back, having some slow play, towards the end of the online qualifier, and then definitely having some slow play at Major 1 with the rest of the team. Now, Dashy, I'm going to put him in decent. He's been having kind of a slow year for his standards, at least in my opinion. I feel like he's been contributing enough, but I feel like Mercules has been bearing the brunt of the load. And the rest of the team, while they are just significantly better than everybody else, for their own personal standards, I feel like they've all been hovering around the decent to solid range, and Merc has been godlike. So, similar boat for draws. I feel like he had a great major one, but I feel like overall he's just been decent. He hasn't been the kind of solid contributor that we expect him to be year over year, so I feel like he's been kicking up and performing a lot better, especially like at Major 1 where he was a very solid contributor, but overall in the year he's just been decent, I would say. Envoy, I'm going to put him in the solid contribution category. He's been borderline godlike at multiple points throughout the year, but Envoy is definitely in that kind of role where it's harder for you to be godlike unless you're just moving Diffie like a beezy, right? So, yeah. That's why I've been solid. I mean, relatively speaking, he's been playing lights out, but it's just hard to be a godlike player in that role. You have to really, really stand out. Estriel, I'm going to put him because he had such a big, long bout of struggles. I'm going to put him in the decent tier for right now, just because, excuse me, to start the year, most of his team struggles were related to just him playing slow and not really being as integrated into the team pushes and the flow of the game as they needed him to be, right, on the rocker or G2 side. Accident, I'm going to put him in solid. He's been a solid contributor all year long. I feel like he's been playing really well. He's been turning a lot of heads, and I don't really have a lot of critiques to offer for his playstyle and his contributions. Ghosty, Godlike. Gonna put Ghosty in the Godlike tier. Gentlemates won Major 1. By default, all the players would have to go into at least solid or Godlike, right? Since they won Major 1. Gwyn, we're going to put him in decent. I mean, the Vancouver Surge have just not looked that good this year. Gwyn has looked pretty solid, so that's why I would say solid mixed with bad equals decent. Hook, I'm going to put Hook in decent as well. I feel like he's been kind of quiet this year. He hasn't really, like, sparing a few clutches, like the 1v3 he had against Rocker or some of the clutches he had against Gentlemates. I mean, he hasn't really had more than one takeover series this season that I can really recall. He played quite well on LAN at Major 1, it must be said, but I feel like he's just been having a quiet season overall. So that's why I'm going to put Hook in decent just for now. Hydra, I'm going to put him in decent as well. He's been having kind of a slow start to the season. He's been picking it up, but Hydra has been overall low impact to start this year. He hasn't been what any of us would expect him to be out the gate, but then again, Hydra is kind of a slower player, so that is what that is. Insight, he's been a decent contributor, but I feel like he, of all people, is fighting for their spot, especially now that Real and Kleenex switch roles. They're not going to be looking at Real as the next person who is being evaluated when they're making, changes to the team. They're going to say, hey, no more role swaps allowed. I think we're just going to have to make a personnel change, and I think Insight is the person who's fighting for a spot. So if this team does improve, I feel like their next move is getting rid of him. So, speaking of obvious improvements to Toronto Koi, JoeDeceives, the number one improvement to this team. Godlike by default. I mean, Joe's the straw that stirs that drink. Excuse me. So, yeah, I think he's just been a great player. Kismet, we're going to put Kismet in solid. I feel like he's been a solid contributor all year long. Like, the Riyadh Falcons, they've had a great season thus far. I don't see how he would be indecent or fighting for a spot or anything other than solid or godlike. Just Kismet's been a solid contributor all year long. He hasn't really had a lot of games where you're like, oh man, the Bulldogs really, bringing him down. He's been great. So, Kremp, gonna put him obviously in godlike. He is the lone godlike player for this G2 side, in my opinion. I feel like he's definitely the star of the team. Lunars, we're going to put him in the decent tier. He's been having a decent year so far. Vancouver Surge just overall have not looked the best, but when they've played really well, Lunars has definitely been, if not their best player, their second best player. Like when they had that upset series against Carolina, Lunars dropped to 1.55, so they've looked really good. Well, he's looked really good when they've looked at their best. So he's definitely their X Factor player. And I would say Gwyn overall has been their best player consistently, but, he's definitely a close second. Lurk, I'm gonna put Lurk in. I'm gonna put him in solid. I feel like he's been a solid contributor to a Carolina team that has found in the majority of the matches that they've played success, right? So I'm going to put him in solid contributor. Not a lot of thought there. Mac, who's a stand-in for any other C9 player. Any of them, Encourage, Okies, just pick one. We're going to put them in fighting for their spot, obviously, like I said before. Mamba, he's been solid. He's been a very solid contributor to G2. He's a big reason why the team's been successful this year. I would definitely say he's been a consistent contributor to this team, and he's definitely been carrying his load and more than what you'd expect from a rookie in some of these series where they've definitely been taken to the brink. Now, speaking of people who've been taken to the brink, we have Mercules, best player in the game, I would say. We're going to put him in the godlike tier above everybody else. It's not ranked, but if you put Merc anywhere but at the top, it just feels a little crazy. I mean, the guy is the reason why Optic won EWC and Champs last year, so, you know, you got to give him his due. Medals, I'm going to put him. He was ranked the best player for the Miami Heretics, so I'm going to put him in the solid just based on, you know, those cards that I've always been such a huge fan of. So I'm going to put Medals in the solid tier. He's been really, really good this year for the Miami Heretics. I feel like he's definitely been their low-key MVP, right? Rancor obviously is the most obvious pick, but I feel like Medals has been probably their best player consistency-wise the whole year long. So, speaking of consistency, we have Nasty. I'm going to put him in the solid tier. He's been the only solid contributor for the Boston Breach thus far this season, so that's a pretty easy no-brainer. Speaking of no-brainers, we have the MVP of Major 1, Mr. Travis Neptune McLeod. Easy, easy inclusion in the godlike tier. MVP of Major 1, I mean, who else would be in the godlike tier, right? Nero, we're going to put him in the godlike tier. I feel like every team should have at least one representative in the godlike tier, unless they're just like C9 where, you know their fate and they're just chalked, right? Or if they're like the Surge where it's like teams just like, you don't really have anyone who's like necessarily godlike. You know what I'm saying? So we'll put Nero in there as the representative of the Carolina Royal Ravens. Pred, we'll put Pred in solid. I feel like we haven't seen any signature Pred takeover series or moments where it's just like, you know, I don't know. I just feel like we haven't seen any signature Pred wins, moments, etc. So in the park, the bus cheese, and some different moments that have been controversial, but I just feel like we haven't seen a Pred like Bocage or Tuscan kind of moment where it's like a highlight reel Pred moment where he gets hype and he's the reason why they orchestrated that comeback or that win. I'm just waiting for that, so I'm going to put Pred in solid right now. He's had some great games, don't get me wrong, in some great series, but he just hasn't had like a Pred, like, let them all hang out kind of series. So, speaking of people letting them all hang out, we got my boy Purge. We're going to put him in fighting for a spot. Say it ain't Soka. I know. Hate to see it for my guy, but he's fighting for a spot. I'm not going to put Real in fighting for a spot. I've not been overly impressed with what I've seen from him this season, if I'm being honest with you. I feel like for his standards, he's been having kind of a bad season. I've always been a big Real supporter, so I was expecting him to get his and do pretty well. I just think that this team has not been really in a position to allow him to be successful just yet, so I think moving him to a flex will definitely pay dividends. It'll probably get this team really, really quick and really different results. So, for the Miami Heretics, their godlike player, we're going to have to include Rancor up there, right? I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious. Rancor has been godlike ever since he entered the CDL last season. He's been an MVP candidate, obviously won Rookie of the Year last year. And yeah, he hasn't skipped a beat this year. He's still looking to be one of the best players in the game in terms of, just eye test, right? Scrap, reigning MVP. I mean, he's looked pretty good this year. His stats definitely haven't been the best, but the LA Thieves have not been at their best all year. So I'll say We'll put him in Godlike just because he's looked like scrap for the most part, but the team performance has not been there, right? So Shotzzy, we're gonna put him. He's been having like a slow start to the year for his standards, but he's usually the kind of player where in January he's a little bit quiet, talks a lot of trash, and then he turns it up in Major 2 and on, right? So if you remember last year, Shotzzy was doing a lot of carrying Major 2 and on, and the rest of the team just kind of couldn't keep up. So yeah, I think Shotzi's going to be all right. I think he'll probably move up to Godlike pretty soon, but just takes a little bit of time for him to adjust. Speaking of people who take no time to adjust, we have Sib. We're going to put him in Godlike automatically. Sib was amazing at Major 1. If Neptune didn't get MVP, it should have easily been Sib. He was definitely the player who we all saw the most, making big plays and getting like really flashy highlight reel plays. Speaking of players who got super highlight reel plays, of course we got Simp, automatic Godlike, right? I mean, Simp's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in comparison with Ghosty, Neptune, and a couple others, right? So, easy automatic Godlike. Skies, we'll put him in decent. He's been a very good contributor in S&D overall, and I feel like Skies has been the man a few times, but there's also been quite a few times where he's been called into question as kind of the gut check kind of player who either will make this team a success or a massive embarrassment, right? Similar position for Snoopy. I feel like Snoopy's been kind of low impact based on our expectations for him this year. We all expect him to break out, become a superstar, and kind of cement himself as one of the best players in the world, but he's had kind of a quiet year so far. So we'll see maybe with Major 2 and beyond if he can kind of get more comfortable and maybe be a little bit more loose on the map now that Nasty is more comfortable in this team. But I don't know. Just kind of a bit surprising to see Snoops not take that next step. Speaking of people who've taken that next step, we have Super, who I'm going to keep in the solid tier. He's probably the best S&D player in the game, probably the best S&D sniper in the game, right? I mean, the guy dropped like 12 and 13 like it was nothing on land. So, yeah, he's still an S&D phenom. That's why I was going to put him in Godlike, but I have to put him in Super just because I feel like, I'm sorry, put him in Super. Put him in Solid just because I feel like, you can't get too far ahead of yourself when the team doesn't even make top 4, right? So, yeah. I'm going to put his teammate Trakes in Solid as well. I feel like Trakes has been a really solid contributor. I feel like all the Miami Heretics players have to be put in Solid because no one's played bad this season, and they've had a really good season in terms of like what you would say is their relative strength, right? In comparison to other teams, it felt like even when they were losing to top teams, they weren't just getting, 360 like bops back to the lobby. They were competitive. It's just, a couple players had bad starts to the game or they had bad games. So, they've been competitive with the top teams. It's just small things that any, team in that position can definitely fix over time. Reese Vivid, another stand-in for Cloud9, the final one, so we'll put him in fighting for a spot because that's their case. TJ Halley, I'm going to put him in decent just because Vancouver Surge, we saw them get their first win in a while, getting it on land against, obviously, the Carolina Royal Ravens, so we'll see if maybe they look a little bit better going into the Major 2 split where all teams have to play each other at least once in the round-robin format. So, speaking of solid, I'm going to put Exceed, the former BK, in. I'm going to put him in decent. I mean, he's had some decent games, he's had some bad games. Exceed has been up and down, but I would definitely say that his downs are a little bit more costly than his ups, right? Let's say, because the Major 1 performance is definitely something I would weigh more heavily than your performance in the online split, just because it's online, people don't take it as seriously. And at the Major, Carolina looked pretty hopeless. So, and Exceed definitely got tucked to bed pretty dramatically. So, yeah, I feel like putting him in solid would kind of be a tough sell, right? Especially if you watch the event. It's just kind of like, this brother didn't really have the easiest time. So, Last player, we're going to put Neum in solid. I feel like he'll be a really good player. I just don't want to over underrate him just because we haven't seen anything from him. So I'm going to say he's going to be a solid contributor to this LA Thieves team who is really just in need of someone who's going to like be a decent contributor in the CDL context. So yeah, I think Neum will be a solid contributor. I feel like he'll be better than a lot of people expect him to be, given the players on that team, and I think he'll turn some heads. So yeah, guys, that'll about wrap it up for me with my pre-Major 2 player tier list. Let me know if you guys agree with my different thoughts here, or if you differ at all in the comment section down below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night like always. And once again, this is Fake Sports News X Rotation. However, the Filipino media is interwebs, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!